It is so weird that the Falcons won, BYU won. I finally won my first game of fantasy in blowout fashion, and I'm still freaking pissed. Why is that? Well, Patrick Mahomes accidentally injured Rasheed Rice, who has been my best receiver in fantasy this year. Like, Patrick, I hope you rot in hell. Nah, I'm just playing. It was an accident, but Patrick, I hope you're proud of yourself, you jackass. You just hurt. You're one of your best receivers that you've had in like 2 or 3 years. Like, I know you have Xavier Worthy still to throw to, but good freaking luck not having him on the field for like at least 4 weeks with that ACL. Anyways, welcome to Grizzly Talks Football episode 12. Yeah, we are in week 4 NFL reactions. We're going to be reacting to all the games. Obviously, if you don't know how it works, I react to the Thursday games, the Sunday games, including the Sunday Nighter, and the Monday Night games, which is 1 or 2, depending on whether or not it's a doubleheader or not. So, that's pretty much how it works, and let's get straight into it. Oh, and by the way, if you have enjoyed this playlist, I will leave the link in the description so you can view every single video that has been uploaded so far, including future videos that will be posted later on. And be sure to hit the subscribe button down there somewhere. Hit the like and hit the bell so you don't miss a video. Anyways, let's get straight into the Thursday night game. Kicking off this episode with a Thursday night game, we had the Dallas Cowboys coming to MetLife and beating the New York Giants 20-15. I want my 3 hours back right now because this was bad. This was atrocious. I mean, it was literally just a passing attack every single time. Like Dak Prescott had a heck of a game, 22-27 for 221 yards and 2 touchdowns. Daniel Jones threw 40 times and had 281 yards and a pick. And I've seen some of his underthrows, they were terrible. As for the rushing time for Dallas and also receiving, we had Rico Dowdle lead the team in rushing, even though he had like 4 yards to carry on 46 yards. Then the receiving was led out by CeeDee Lamb with 7 catches for 98 yards and a touchdown, and Jake Ferguson even had 7 catches for 49 yards. Both of those two Cowboys putting up some decent stat lines for me in fantasy. Awesome job, you two. And as for the Giants, rushing was atrocious. Devin Singletary, 14 carries, 24 yards. And then Malik Neighbors having 12 catches, 115 yards, crazy. 11 catches for 71 yards for one. Daniel Robinson, and then Darius Slayton coming out of nowhere to put up 3 catches for 56 yards. Damn. Defensively, we had 1 interception, 1 sack from Dallas' defense. Amani Oruwariye got the pick, and DeMarcus Lawrence finally getting the ball with a sack. And also heard Micah Parsons got taken out of the game twice, and the second time he was taken out for the rest of the evening. And oh boy, I'm really hoping he's okay because if he goes down, the defense is screwed. 4 other pass deflections by Overshown, Malik Hooker, Jordan Lewis, and there was also Trayvon Diggs who had 1. Eric Kendricks had a very solid game as well out there. Like Dallas, they were able to just get it done when it mattered most. Great job on defense. For the Giants defense, Kayvon Thibodeau got the only sack of the game. Bobby Okereke and Cordell Flott got pass deflections. Other players who had some good games as well were Micah McFadden, Tyler Nubin, who had a forced fumble, Bobby Okereke with 5 tackles and a tackle for loss. Nick McLeod had a tackle for loss. Brian Burns had a tackle for loss. Like, both defenses did well, and so did the passing attack. Rushing game was absolutely miserable. Cowboys outlasted the Giants in a very bad game on Thursday Night Football. Up next, we had the New Orleans Saints losing to the Falcons on a 58-yard field goal by Younghoe Koo. We had a miserable offensive showing. We had 0 touchdowns on offense the entire game, and the Saints still took an L to us. How does that happen? Let's get to the rushing. Alvin Kamara with 77 yards and touchdown on the ground. Taysom Hill had 2 rushing touchdowns, and he was on my bench in the Sunday game. And then he got down with a rib injury. Very sad for him, but man, we couldn't stop the run for anything. And then back to the passing, 28-36, 239 yards, but an interception. He also got sacked 1 time. The receiving was highlighted by Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, both having 8 catches and for 170 yards total. Then Alvin Kamara also had 7 catches for 42 yards. Crazy. And for Atlanta's passing offense, Kirk Cousins, miserable night. 21 of 35, 238 yards and a pick. He got sacked one time as well. Algier continues to outperform Bijan Robinson. Man, I love it. Tyler Algier with 60 yards on 8 carries. Bijan Robinson at 4 yards a carry? What? And then, of course, the receiving was highlighted by Drake London, 6 catches for 64 yards. Darnell Mooney's 3 catches for 56 yards. And Raymond McLeod's 6 catches for 52 yards. And Bijan had 4 catches for 46 yards as well. Man, how in the world do we win with that offense? I mean, New Orleans defense didn't even do that bad. Peyton Turner got a strip sack. Paulson Adebo had a hell of a game with an interception, 10 tackles. It was basically the Paulson Adebo show with an addition of Peyton Turner out there. Like, Saints defense, like 2 defenders in general did well, but the other players that were out there just didn't do too much. Troy Henderson had a pick 6 on the game. That's his real name, DeAndre Alford. His name is actual D. Alford, but apparently his real name's DeAndre Alford after rating this from Pro Football Reference. Mike Hughes also had a great game. So did Caden Ellis having a very decent game. And there was also Kadero Hodge getting a fumble recovery off a mumped punt for a touchdown. Crazy stuff. Oh yeah, and Younghoe Koo got me 20 fantasy points as a kicker. Yeah, he had more points than Rashee Rice. More than Javonte Williams even. That is insane. And even Cortland Sutton as well. Absolutely amazing stuff. Defense played amazing. Same with special teams. Offense was shaky. And we still came out with a 2-point win over New Orleans. Up next, we had Cincinnati Bengals beating Carolina Panthers 34-24 in Charlotte. Cincinnati finally got their first win. It was due. It was long overdue, actually. Like the quarterbacks that you see on here, Joe Burrow and Andy Dalton actually had a very good duel. Like 232 yards for Burrow, 22 of 31. Dalton with 25 of 40. Like they both had 2 touchdowns and a pick. It was really good for the quarterbacks. Rushing game for both teams were also solid. Chase Brown getting 80 yards on 15 carries and 2 touchdowns on the bench for me. He was scoring 23 points? Crazy stuff. And Chuba Hubbard is still him. 104 yards and a touchdown. I'm starting to believe it more and more that he is the heart and soul of that team on that offense. As for Bengals receivers, Jamar Chase having a 63-yard touchdown, 3 catches, 85 on the day. T. Higgins is back with 6 catches, 60 yards. And Zach Moss had 4 catches, 27 yards and a touchdown. Great stuff for Cincinnati. Panthers weren't that bad either passing. Deontay Johnson led the team in receiving with 7 catches, 83 yards and a score. Xavier Leggett with 6 catches, 66 and a touchdown. Adam Thielen, I think he might have gotten hurt. He didn't really do too much. Either he didn't do too much or he got hurt. I'm going to guess he got hurt in this game. By the way, Adam Thielen fantasy owners are just shaking in their boots right now. For Cincinnati, their defense was highlighted by Von Bell's interception of Andy Dalton. Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt, DJ Turner, and Daxton Hill having some solid games as well. Logan Wilson and Joseph Tsai with quarterback hits also. And as for Carolina's defense, Xavier Woods got the interception. It was pretty much his show. J.C. Horn had a good game as well. 2 defensive backs led the team in defense. Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati offense were just able to get it done. And just like that, they get their first win of the season. Great job, Cincinnati. Can you keep it going next week? We'll have to see. Next up, we have the LA Rams losing to the Chicago Bears in Soldier Field 24-18. And I gotta be honest, looking at this game, Caleb Williams actually looked good in this game. I gotta say, this is the first game that he actually looked very solid. Starting with the Rams offense, Matt Stafford, he had an okay game, 20-29 for 224 yards. No touchdowns, and he got a pick. And both quarterbacks got sacked 3 times, by the way. The rushing was led out by Kyron Williams, who had a monster game rushing, 19 carries for 94 yards and a score. And receiving was highlighted by Tutu Atwell and Jordan Whittington with 10 catches and 150 yards almost between the 2 receivers. And as for the Bears, Caleb Williams' passing yards aren't there, but he is focusing on the consistency and also completing safe passes, 17-23. He got a touchdown pass out of it. DeAndre Swift absolutely walked over the Rams defense this week. with 16 carries, 93 yards, and a score with 7 catches and 72 yards. Damn. And even Roshan Johnson got the other rushing touchdown for them. And the receiving touchdown was by DJ Moore. Hopefully he'll stop crying about not getting the ball as much anymore. As for the Rams, the sacks were by Quentin Lake, Brandon Fisk, and Michael Hott. And Christian Roseboom and Troy Reader having solid games as well. Fisk even had a forced fumble in this game. As for the Bears defense, Jaquan Brisker had an absolute hell of a game. He had an interception, a sack, and 8 solo tackles. And Kevin Byard even had a solid game as well. Forced fumble was by Montez Sweat. He had a solid game. Griffin Dexter had a sack. Kyler Gordon got a fumble recovery. Matt Pryor had a fumble recovery. Wow. Yeah, Bears did solid on defense. Offense did enough to be able to outscore the Rams. And just like that, the Bears are 2-2. Up next, we had the Pittsburgh Steelers losing in stunning fashion to Anthony Richardson's Indianapolis Colts in Lucas Oil Stadium. Wow. I gotta be honest, nobody expected the Colts to win at home, especially against a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, who seem to have their quarterback that can lead them to what they used to be back when they were winning 6 Super Bowls in their entire history. As for Pittsburgh, Justin Fields didn't have a terrible game. Like, he had 22-34, 312 yards, a touchdown. He did get sacked 4 times and lost a fumble out of the 2 times he fumbled the ball. He also had 2 rushing touchdowns in this game. Man, what is he? NFL's Jalen Milroe? And then George Pickens is still here. He is still him. 113 yards on 7 catches. He did lose a fumble, though. And Pratt Freiermuth had the only receiving touchdown of the entire game for the Steelers. And as for the Colts, Anthony Richardson did go down, so their backup was Joe Flacco. And he put up 16 of 26 for 168 and 2 touchdowns. He did get sacked twice, but I think both quarterbacks, the way they played, they looked solid. And Jonathan Taylor is still him with 21 carries, 88 yards, and a touchdown. He's still there. Michael Pittman had a way better game this week with 6 catches, 113 yards. And Josh Downs had 8 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown. And Andrew Ogletree had a 15-yard touchdown on the day. Obviously, I did say that the Steelers' defense had 2 sacks in this game. Cam Hayward had 1, and Larry Ogunjobi and Beanie Bishop, combined for a sack. And Deshaun Elliott, Minka Fitzpatrick have some very solid games. Deshaun Elliott even had a forced fumble. Crazy stuff from Pittsburgh's defense. It just wasn't enough, apparently. They just kept getting stalled out on the run game. Well, unless you were Justin Fields. Man, the Colts defense was eaten this week. Dayo Adimbo with 1.5 sacks. Chris Lemons with a sack. Julian Blackman, Tyquan Lewis, and Grover Stewart having half a sack. And then the usual, EJ Speed, Zaire Franklin, Nick Cross having solid games. And Jalen Jones also had a very decent game as well. 2 forced fumbles by Lemons and Cross with the recoveries by Chris Lemons and Blackman. Crazy stuff. Colts defense absolutely ate this week against Pittsburgh. And they got their 2nd win of the season. Great job, Indianapolis. Up next, we have one of the best games this week with the Minnesota Vikings beating the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau 31-29. Sheesh. Packers had a late rally just like Georgia had against Alabama on Saturday, but Minnesota was able to hold on, and just like that, Sam Darnold is 0-4. Funking hell. Damn it, Samuel, you done it again. 275 yards, 20 of 28, 3 touchdowns and a pick. He did get sacked twice, with the rushing game led up by Aaron Jones with 93 yards. Jordan Addison had a 7-yard rushing touchdown. And even a 3 catches, 72 yards and a touchdown. Aaron Jones had 4 catches, 46 yards. Justin Jefferson had 6 catches, 85 yards and a touchdown. And Josh Oliver had the other receiving touchdown on the day for the Vikings. And as for the Packers, I think they should have just kept Malik Willis going. In relief of Jordan Love, they have to just wait until he is 100%. But they decided to bring him out, and they made him throw 54 times. Are you serious, Green Bay? 32 times he completed passes for 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions. Oh boy. Rushing game was a little iffy. Like, Josh Jacobs had 51 receiving yards. He had 4 catches, 27 yards on the backfield. Receiving was highlighted by Jaden Reed, 7 catches, 139 yards and touchdown. Dontavian Wicks coming out of nowhere to put up 5 catches, 78 yards and 2 touchdowns for the injured Christian Watson. And Tucker Kraft with 6 catches, 53 yards in the score in relief of Luke Musgrave. If you forget the turnovers, both of these quarterbacks actually played well. It's just the 3 interceptions by Jordan Love is just unacceptable for Green Bay. Like, he wasn't at 100%. Like I said, you should have just kept Malik Willis going. He was, like, undefeated. As soon as Jordan Love got hurt, Malik Willis was actually undefeated as a starter. Defensively from Minnesota, we have Byron Murphy, Shaquille Griffin, and Common Grugier-Hill getting interceptions. Pat Jones getting a sack. Murphy even had a forced fumble with a recovery by Cameron Bynum. He and Blake Cashman also had some solid games for that Minnesota defense. Absolutely unbelievable. As for Green Bay, Xavier McKinney continues to be a very solid safety. He got an interception this game with sacks from Quay Walker and Keyshawn Nixon. They, along with Eric Stokes, having some very solid games in this game. Look at this. Edger Cooper had a fumble from Keyshawn Nixon. Like, Packers defense did solid. Aside from the turnovers by Jordan Love, he did pretty well. But at the end, the Vikings outlasted the Packers because of the 3 interceptions and a fumble. And the Vikings won the turnover battle, and that's what led them to win and be 4-0 with Sam fucking Darnold. Are you for real right now? Up next, we had the Jacksonville Jaguars taking another L, this time to the Houston Texans at NRG Stadium, 24-20. Jacksonville got to an early lead, and I gotta say, Trevor Lawrence, you are not looking too good for Jacksonville. Even Matt Jones had to get some reps last game because y'all were doing terrible against Buffalo. I mean, aside from the 2 touchdowns, he had 18 of 33 on the day. He did have 169 yards. 2 touchdowns are great and all, but 18 of 33 is not going to get it done. With the rushing game led up by Tank Bigsby with 7 carries for 90 yards. Travis Etienne even had 50 yards on the ground. 6 catches, 86 yards, and touchdown for Brian Thomas. And Christian Kirk also had 7 catches, 61 yards, and a score. And as for Houston, CJ Stroud was 27 of 40, 345 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He did get sacked twice. But there was also Cam Akers, who had an okay game, 13 carries for 53 yards in relief of Joe Mixon. And Nico Collins, who is still back. He's still here. 12 catches, 151 yards, and a score for him. Stephon Diggs with 5 catches, 69 yards, and a rushing touchdown. And Dare Ogunbowale got the game-winning touchdown, 4 catches, 47 yards, and a score with 18 seconds left. And that was what Houston won the game with. Jacksonville's defense wasn't even that bad. Like, Roy Arbison Harris and Jeremiah Ledbetter had sacks. Ventrell Miller, Montero Brown, Ronald Darby, and Antonio Johnson also had some good games. Josh Hines Allen had 2 QB hits and a fumble recovery by Daniel Thomas. Wait, what? Like, Montero Brown also had 3 pass deflections. Like, this defense wasn't even terrible. Obviously, no interceptions on the game, but Eric Murray also had a sack and a pass deflection. A solid game from Kamari Lassiter. There was also 2 pass deflections by Stingley Jr. I think he is a solid, very, very solid corner. Jalen Peters, a good safety. Caleb Bullock had a pass deflection. And yeah, Houston just was able to score last, and that's what won in the game at the end. So great job, Houston. You're 3-1 now. What the hell was this game? Like, this was awful. Broncos beat the Jets in MetLife 10-9. Blech. How did you let Bo Nix get negative passing yards in the first half and still lose to them? How is that even possible? I think I know the answer. I've been saying this from the beginning. The Jets are always going to be the Jets. No offense to Jets fans, but that's just the harsh reality of the NFL. I mean, this offensive production was just hornswogglingly bad. Like, Bo Nix had 60 passing yards and still won. With a touchdown pass to Cortland Sutton with 3 catches, 60 yards. Like, 2 players had positive passing yards with receiving yards, with Javonte Williams and Michael Burton with 3 yards, but then Troy Flinken, Tyler Batty had negative receiving yards. But by the way, Tyler Batty, hopefully he has a speedy recovery because did not look good when he got hurt. And also Javonte Williams had 77 rushing yards, with Jaleel McLaughlin get 9 carries, 46 for 5 yards to carry. Wow. Aaron Rodgers did okay, like 24, 42, 225 yards, and he got sacked 5 times. Man, Denver has the defense. I will say that. Rushing game was just bad. Aaron Rodgers had 5 yards to carry. Braylon had 4.3. And the Breece Hall, 10 carries and 4 yards. A person who has Breece Hall on their fantasy team was not very happy this game at all. Receiving was highlighted by Mike Williams and Alan Lazard with Garrett Wilson. Here's what I think. Mike Williams is 6'4". Alan Lazard is 6'5". Garrett Wilson's 6 foot. My opinion, put Garrett Wilson in the slot. Like, he's the shortest of the three. I think he should be in the slot. Mike Williams had 4 for 67. Lazard had 5 for 58. Garrett Wilson had 5 catches for 41 yards on 8 targets. Conklin had himself 4 catches as well. Like, my personal opinion, yeah, put Alan Lazard and Mike Williams at wideout, and put Wilson in the slot. I think it'll be a lot easier for you Jets fans. But of course, Robert Saleh is the coach, and I can't really influence him at all because he's in New York. But man, have yourself a game, Denver defense. PJ Locke had a good game. So did Justin Cernad. Nick Bonito had a sack. John Franklin Myers had a sack. Jonah Ellis, Malcolm Roach combined. Cody Barton, Riley Moss also had some good games, along with Jaquan McMillan with a tackle for loss. Forced fumble by Brandon Jones, and Riley Moss was able to recover one. Like, both teams got a fumble this week. And defensively for New York, no sacks on Bo Nix. 2 pass deflections from DJ Reed. Tony Adams, Jamin Sherwood had some solid games, and Quincy Williams with 2 tackles for loss. Forced fumble by Williams. Michael Carter was the one who recovered. Defenses, like, they were solid every single snap. And then a couple missed field goals later, Denver wins by 1 point. Yeah, Will Lutz missed a field goal with under 2 minutes left. And then the Jets trying to take the lead in the game and potentially win it, he missed as well. And Denver ends up squeaking out a 10-9 victory to go to 2-2. Oh, Jets. I believe this was the last game from the Sunday 1 o'clock slate, with the Philadelphia Eagles losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Raymond James Stadium 33-16. All I can say is, Jalen, you are pathetic. That is just horrible. The first 4 games for you. I don't care about your passing yards, Link. You have done absolutely horrible, and now you're coming off a bye. You and Nick Sirianni need to get it together. I told you this connection was not going to work, like, at all. And man, I was right. Like, offensively, Jalen Hurts had 18 of 30 for 150 yards and a touchdown on through the air and a touchdown on the ground. Saquon had 84 rushing yards on 10 carries with 2 catches for 32 yards. Dallas Goedert was their best receiver with 7 catches, 62 yards. And Paris Campbell, of all people, had the only receiving touchdown of the game because Devontae Smith had a concussion. As for Tampa Bay, they were cooking this week. Again, Baker Mayfield, 347 yards on 30 of 47 with 2 touchdowns. And also a rushing touchdown with Bucky Irvin having the other rushing touchdown. Sean White having a solid game as well. Mike Evans, 8 catches, 94 yards and touchdown. I need to see that every game. Trey Palmer had the other touchdown. Godwin had 6 catches, 69 yards. Cade Otton had 6 catches for 52. And even Sterling Shepard had 3 catches for 51 yards. What is going on with Tampa Bay's offense? Philadelphia's defense got to Baker Mayfield twice with Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat. Darius Slay had a deflection. He had a solid game. So did Nakobe Dean, Quinyon Mitchell, and Ray Blankenship in the secondary. And at linebacker spot, because Nakobe Dean is a linebacker. 2 pass deflections for Avonte Maddox as well. C.J. Gardner-Johnson also had a pass deflection. Ooh, Jalen Carter as well? Man, like, they did some pass deflections, but they just could not stop Baker Mayfield from absolutely tearing up their defense. Oh yeah, and Tampa Bay's defense also sacked Jalen Hurts 6 times. 6. Levante David having 2 sacks. Anthony Nelson, Logan Hall, Vita Vea, and Yaya Diaby having sacks as well. With KJ Britt and Jordan Whitehead also having a solid game. With Diaby having a forced fumble and David having a forced fumble. J.J. Russell recovered one. Baker Mayfield had to recover one of his own. But man, Tampa Bay's defense was cooking. Like, the entire team was cooking. And Eagles just had no answer whatsoever. Like, I think Jalen Hurts had like 7 passing yards up to the 2-minute warning in the first half. Man, that's how you know this game was getting ugly, and it did. To start off the 4 o'clock slate on Sunday, we had the Washington Commanders absolutely beat the bricks off the Arizona Cardinals. Wow. I wasn't really expecting this to be a blowout because both of these quarterbacks have some bright futures ahead of them, but man, Washington, Jaden Daniels, man, I was wrong about you. You guys might be for real in the NFC East. You're 3-1 now. Great job. I mean, passing game from Washington was solid. Daniels had 26 of 30, 233 yards, a touchdown. Unfortunately, did have a pick. But the rushing offense was unstoppable. Like, Arizona or Washington's defense couldn't stop the run because they had brick walls for their offensive line. Jaden Daniels also had a rushing touchdown. Ryan Robinson had 100 yards and a touchdown on 21 carries. And Jeremy McNichols had 2 rushing touchdowns on 8 carries of 68 yards. Jeez. Olamide Zaccheaus was their leading receiver with 6 catches, 85 yards, but Terry McLaurin, 7 catches, 52 yards in the score. That's pretty awesome for both of those guys. And as for Arizona, we had Kyler Murray, 16 of 22, 142 yards, a touchdown. He did get sacked 4 times in this game. Dang. James Conner had the only touchdown for rushing. He had 100 yards, though. Like, this is what I said. Rushing yards-wise, none of their defense could stop them. And Marvin Harrison had the only touchdown in the game with 5 catches for 45 yards. Man, Marvin Harrison might be a candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Actually, that's a massive understatement. He is a candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year as of this point. As I said before, the Washington defense got to Kyler Murray 4 times. Dorrance Armstrong and Jonathan Allen having 2.5 sacks each. The guys who had a half a sack were Bobby Wagner, Frankie Luvu, and Deron Payne. Jeremy Chin also had a solid game. Like, 3 forced fumbles between the 3, and Luvu even recovered 1. That is just an absolute unbelievable showing for the defense. For Arizona's defense, no sacks, 2 pass deflections for Starling Thomas and Garrett Williams. Budda Baker, Kaiser White, and Mac Wilson having solid games for them. Even Roy Lopez had a tackle for loss. Washington just dominated on both sides of the ball, and they are still a first-place team in the NFC East. Absolutely unbelievable from Jaden Daniels in Washington. Up next, we had the New England Patriots losing to the San Francisco 49ers 30-13. Yeah, the magic was dead before it got started. Like, Jacoby Brissett couldn't catch a break. San Francisco's defense is just too much. But there were injuries involved with San Francisco. That's why they were 1-2. I will say quarterback play was mid at best. Jacoby Brissett got sacked 6 times. They're 19 of 32, 168 yards, a touchdown, a pick. Rushing game was abysmal. Stevenson had another fumble. Jacoby Brissett also fumbled the ball. And the receiving was highlighted by Antonio Gibson, 3 catches, 67 yards. What? And then Brock Purdy with 15 of 27, 288 yards, a touchdown, a pick. Only got sacked once. Jordan Mason had 123 yards and a touchdown. Man, 49ers will always have a brick wall on their offensive line. Just insane. And then the touchdown was by George Kittle, who had 4 catches, 45 yards in the score. 3 catches for 88 yards for Juwan Jennings, still having an absolute solid game. And Brandon Ayuk having 5 targets, but only 2 catches for 48 yards. Man, Ayuk fantasy owners are not happy at all. Neither are Deebo Samuel fantasy owners. He only had 10 points. Like, it's mid, but it's not, like, spectacular. Like, numbers that they are expecting from Deebo. As for New England's defense, it seems like Jabril Peppers is starting to get his career back on track with 2 pass defenses and a pick. There also was a sack by Dietrich Wise. And Keon White having a solid game with a tackle for loss and 2 quarterback hits, a forced fumble for Christian Ellis, and he even recovered one, with Raekwon McMillan and Christian Gonzalez having some solid games as well. Like, New England could tackle, but they couldn't really stop the Niners for very long because the offense got stalled out for most of the game. They just couldn't petite. Oh yeah, and did I forget to mention that Fred Warner's the best middle linebacker in the NFL? No questions need to be asked. He had a pick 6 in this game. And, man, 6 times that Jacoby Brissett got sacked. Like 2.5 for Kevin Givens. Nick Bosa had a sack, a forced fumble and recovery. Evan Anderson had a sack and a forced fumble. Malik Collins had a fumble recovery and also 1.5 sacks. There was also Jair Brown and Charvarius Ward who had some solid games as well. Oh, but man, Niners just cooking up. Just like the Washington Commanders, but not as bad. Niners were able to win on both sides of the ball, and they were able to pull out a win to get their season back on track. Up next, we have the Cleveland Browns losing to the Raiders 20-16 in Allegiant Stadium. I cannot believe I believed in this franchise for far too long. Yeah, I'm not going to make the same mistake again. Sorry, Raiders. I did not realize how bad the Cleveland Browns look. They look like complete shit. The Browns did not pay you to be this bad. 24-32, sure. 176 yards, a touchdown, a pick, and got sacked 3 times and fumbled once. Luckily, it wasn't lost. Jerome Ford led rushing with 58 yards. Jerry Jeudy had 6 catches for 72 yards, and Blake Whiteheart had the only touchdown. Amari Cooper, 4 catches to 35 yards. Their fantasy owners are absolutely pissed right now. You thought Carolina was where quarterbacks went to die, and Cleveland might be there as well. And as for the Raiders, Minshew didn't throw any touchdowns. He didn't throw any picks either. He was 14-24 for 130 yards. Rushing game was a lot better somehow. 50 yards for Samir White, 5 carries for 60 yards for Madison. And then DJ Turner had a rushing touchdown. Trey Tucker had a rushing touchdown. And the receiving was led by Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker, both having 10 catches for 90 yards of the 130 he threw for. Defensively for Cleveland, Myles Garrett is still here with 2 sacks. He had 3 quarterback hits on the game. Rodney McLeod had a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Zay McGuire had a forced fumble. Solid games for Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah, Mark Emerson, and Ronnie Hickman. Browns defense, they're one of the best in the league, but their offense sucks. And as for Vegas, Trayvon Moore got the interception. Isaiah Polamalu had a sack. Charles Snowden had a sack. Janarius Robinson and Christian Wilkins combined for a sack. Robert Spillane also had a solid game. So did Luke Masterson. Charles Snowden and Christian Wilkins had 3 quarterback hits on the game. Man, Raiders and Browns defenses look very solid. It's just Cleveland's offense looked worse out there on the field. Yeah, Cleveland, it might be time to put in Jameis Winston because Deshaun Watson is just not working out right now. And the final game of the 4 o'clock slate would be the Kansas City Chiefs beating the LA Chargers in SoFi Stadium 17-10. This is not because the Chiefs looked good. In fact, they looked bad. They did not look like a Super Bowl champion at all. That's what they mean. Chiefs do bad in the regular season, but then win it when it matters most in the playoffs. Also, fuck you, Patrick, for injuring my best receiver in fantasy and your number 1 receiver, in fact. So, screw you. I mean, look at this. Justin Herbert outperformed Patrick Mahomes, but in all James White fashion, they get saved again. I'm so tired of the Chiefs always winning, always with the Swifties talking shit. When is karma gonna come back on the Chiefs? Seriously. Anyways, Mahomes with 19-29 for 245 yards, a touchdown, a pick. Carson Steele had a fumble in this game. Kareem Hunt is back, and he had 69 yards on 14 carries, so he didn't do that bad. Samaje Perine had a rushing touchdown in the game. Travis Kelce finally with a breakout game with 7 catches, 89 yards. Xavier Worthy also had 3 catches for 73 yards and a touchdown on the day. Oh yeah, and he also had a 54-yard reception. That might have been for a touchdown. I'm not too sure. I did not fact check that. And as for LA, Justin Herbert had 16-27, 79 yards and a touchdown. Rushing game, very atrocious. I did make the right call of putting J.K. Dobbins on the bench and having Kenneth Walker eat. And man, J.K. Dobbins 14-32. He had 3 catches for 30 yards as well, but Oh boy, that was terrible. And the only receiver really worth mentioning on here, honestly, was Lad McConkey with 5 catches, 67 yards, and a touchdown, and Quentin Johnston having only 1 catch of 5 targets. Man, Lad McConkey is still there. Quentin Johnston can have a good game from time to time, but Lad McConkey might be a very good wide receiver too for the future. Defensively for Kansas City, Chris Jones had 2 sacks on the game. Jaylen Watson had 2 pass defenses, and Trent McDuffie had 1, with Justin Reed also having 1. Drew Tranquil had a good game as well, with a tackle for loss and 7 tackles and 1 quarterback hit. Man. Oh, and I also forgot Rasheed Rice had a forced fumble before he got accidentally clipped in the knee by Patrick Mahomes. And as for LA, Christian Fulton had an interception in this game, along with 2 pass deflections. The defense got there 3 times, with Bud Dupree getting 2 sacks, Tarheeb Still and Troy Dye each having a half a sack, Elijah Molden and Denzel Perryman having some solid games, with Tuli Tuipulotu having a forced fumble, with Elijah Molden having a fumble recovery. Defense played well for both teams, just Kansas City was able to outlast the Chargers somehow, and they are still somehow 4-0. How? When is this reign of terror going to end? Up next, we have the Sunday Night Football matchup with the Buffalo Bills absolutely getting demolished by the Baltimore Ravens 35-10. Damn. For the Bills, Josh Allen was 16-29 for 180 yards. I think Trubisky only threw 2 passes in this game. Josh Allen got sacked 3 times. He may have gotten injured, and he did fumble once as well. Rushing offense was just atrocious. Their only receivers really worth mentioning were Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and Dalton Kincaid on the game, with a combined 12 catches for literally most of their yards. I believe counting this was 160 between the 3 receivers and tight end. And as for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson had 13 of 18. He threw 18 times. Josh Johnson threw once. 156 yards for Jackson and 2 touchdowns. Only got set once. But then the rushing offense was a damn unstoppable force. Derrick Henry, 200 yards and a touchdown. How could the Bills not stop him? 87-yard scamper? Are you kidding me? And then Lamar Jackson had a rushing touchdown as well. Derrick Henry also had a receiving touchdown with 3 catches for 10 yards. Only receiver worth mentioning was Justice Hill. Actually, he's a running back. 6 catches, 78 yards in a score. You let Justin Hill become your best receiver. And also, Mark Andrews fantasy owners are really pissed right now, because he only had 1 target the entire game. And Isaiah Likely, he might have gotten hurt in this game as well. So prayers up to Isaiah Likely. Hopefully he has a fast recovery as well. Mark Andrews, fantasy owners, you got to be scared now. Buffalo's defense only had 1 sack from Balin Spector. Dorian Williams once again having a very good game with a forced fumble and 5 tackles. Rasul Douglas also had a solid game. Richard Benford had a decent game. Buffalo's defense just could not stop the run, because apparently Buffalo just has a very nice offensive line, and they have a good running back and a running quarterback. As for Baltimore's defense, Calvin Noy had 2 sacks and a forced fumble. Kyle Hamilton recovered a fumble, and Odafe Oweh had a sack. Kyle Hamilton had 6 tackles on the game, and Marlon Humphrey was the other one that had a solid game. Ravens dominated on both sides of the ball. Buffalo couldn't stop the run, and they could not stop turning the ball over and letting Josh Allen get sacked 3 times. And now we have the first of the doubleheader of the Monday Night Football bonanza. We have the Tennessee Titans getting their first victory of the season, taking down the Miami Dolphins 31-12. Passing yardage-wise, this game was absolute dog shit. I say passing yardage-wise because even though Mason Rudolph had 9 of 17 for 85 yards and both of these quarterbacks combined for 110 yards, Will Levis threw a pick, Mason Rudolph was actually leading some good drives and having Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears get rushing touchdowns, with Pollard getting 88 rushing yards and Tyjae getting 39. And the receivers really only to look at is Tyler Boyd and DeAndre Hopkins, only with 2 catches and 31 yards each. What in the world was going on passing this week? I know a lot of receiver fantasy owners are just absolutely furious right now. And Tyler Huntley wasn't much better. Like 14-22 for 96 yards. He had a backwards pass to Tyreek Hill. He got sacked twice. Like rushing game, Tyler Huntley had the only touchdown of the game for Miami. Like the rushing game, besides that, was just atrocious. And Jalen Waddle was really the leading receiver, even though he had 4 catches for 36 yards only. Man. Dolphins and Titans struggled offensively, but Mason Rudolph did enough to lead the team to a victory and lead them to get some points. Defensively for Tennessee, Sebastian Joseph-Day and Harold Landry had sacks, and Kenneth Murray was also a guy who had 6 tackles. Devondre Sweat had 2 tackles for loss. Arden Key had a fumble recovery because of the backwards pass that turned to a fumble, so Arden Key was credited with a fumble recovery in this game as well. Defense did enough to set up Mason Rudolph for some good drives. Well, the good thing about Miami is that they got a turnover and an Emmanuel Ogbah interception. Jordan Brooks also had a sack. He had an absolute monster game, and that was it for Miami Dolphins defense. Like, they did their job, but the Dolphins offense couldn't deliver anything except 2 field goals and a touchdown run by Tyler Huntley. That was basically it. If it wasn't for the rushing game, it was Field Goal City in Miami. And finally, we have what I believe was the game of the week. Seattle Seahawks losing to Detroit in Ford Field 42-29. Like, the score doesn't say everything. Like, this game was just amazing. I'd rather watch this game 10 times out of 10 over the Dolphins and Titans. Like, everybody would say 9 or 10 times out of 10. They would absolutely watch this game over Miami, Tennessee. For the Seahawks offense, 38-56 for 395 yards, a touchdown, and a pick for Geno Smith, and he got sacked 3 times in this game. But thank the Lord for Kenneth Walker getting 80 yards on 12 carries and 3 touchdowns with 4 catches at 36 yards. He single-handedly gave me my first victory in fantasy football this week. I'm 1-3. I am the same record as the Dolphins and the Titans. Like, are you freaking kidding me? And of course, the receiving was headlined by DK Metcalf having 7 catches, 140 yards, and Tyler Lockett and Jesse Smith and Jigba having 5 catches, 61, and 8 catches for 51 yards, respectively. And as for the Lions, Jared Goff made every single one of his 18 passes for 292 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Amon-Ra St. Brown threw a touchdown to Jared Goff as well. And the rushing game is still solid. Jahmyr Gibbs, 78 yards on 14 carries and 2 touchdowns. David Montgomery, 40 yards and a touchdown. And Jameson Williams had 1 of the touchdowns. And Amon-Ra St. Brown even received the touchdown. That's crazy. 2 players threw for touchdowns and caught touchdowns. Jason Williams also had 2 catches, 80 yards, and a score. Sam Laporta even had 4 catches for 53 yards. And even Tim Patrick in his 3rd game as a Lion with 2 catches. But he did get 52 yards in this game. Seattle's defense had Derek Hall, Jim Reed, and Draymond Jones getting sacks. Like, there was also Tyrell Johnson and Tyrese Knight having a good game. Like, they just could not stop the passing attack or the rushing game. Like, Lions had both. And so did the Seahawks, even though Malcolm Rodriguez, DJ Reader had sacks, and Levi Onwuzurike and Lee McNeil combined for a sack. They also had Kirby Joseph get an interception, a forced fumble by Jack Campbell that was recovered by Carlton Davis, and Amik Robinson and Alex Anzalone even having some good games. Like, both defenses did their absolute hardest. Like, both teams had some solid games. Like, Seattle's defense just broke a lot more than the Lions' defense did. And Lions are 3-1. And they are looking like a big threat in the NFC. Yeah, watch out, NFL. You got Detroit and Minnesota having 4-0 and 3-1 records in the NFC North. You better watch those 2 teams this week. Better see how well they do until they play each other. And before I forget, I'm going to show you my college game day pick as well as a bonus segment. Miami, number 8 in the country, against the Cal Golden Bears in Berkeley. I'm not going to waste too much time. I'm just going to say Miami wins this game. Like, Cam Ward is a Heisman candidate, and for damn good reason. California, unfortunately, their only loss was to Florida State. I think Cal can put up a good fight, but the Canes have this one nailed. And that is going to do it for this episode of Grizzly Talks Football. If you have enjoyed this series, again, I will leave a link in the description for you to watch every single episode in there so you don't miss a thing. And also, there will be future episodes coming up, of course. So you'll have that playlist there in case you want to view every single episode up to this point. If you have enjoyed this playlist and enjoyed this episode, make sure you leave it a like. Hit the red subscribe button. It's somewhere down there. Oh wait, it's the other end. Click it down there. Anyways, until next time, I'll see you guys for week 5 NFL predictions. Peace.